Welcome to Let's Talk, and welcome back to Face to Face with Jesus, Chapter 3. Excuse me, I just choked on some water. Growing up Muslim, I was brought up in a blend of two cultures, Middle Eastern and Western. My homeland was westernized because of the influence of modern industrial cultures. Orthodox Christians and Jews lived in our neighborhood, but the vast majority of our people were born Muslim, which meant they were expected to remain faithful to the Islamic beliefs and the Quran for their lifetimes. It is written in the Quran that if a Muslim leaves Islam and converts to any other religion, the penalty is death. I understood from a very early age that because I was born Muslim, I would die a Muslim. Both Sunni and Shia women wore veils, but were not required to cover their faces. Many women in rural areas wore traditional blue, black, and white veils. In the towns and cities, it was more common for women to wear the colorful embroidery traditional dresses that reached the ankles and wrists. The Middle Eastern influence was predominant in my family. During meals, we sat on long cushions on the floor. And we ate with our right hand, the same hand we used to greet people. We never used our left for eating or greeting, since the left hand is used to clean the body and is therefore unclean. There was always an abundance of food, heaping platters of lambs, kebabs, pita bread, grilled vegetables, tabbouleh, soups, baklava, and baklava for the desserts, and with tea and fresh dry fruits. We were very family-oriented and ate all of our meals together in conversation, joy, and laughter. Our discussions lasted for hours and ranged from politics to school and sports. I was the baby of my family, spoiled and lavished with love. I was treated as a treasure by my brothers and sisters. During those early years, I knew only peace and security. I missed my 5 older sisters when they left for school each day, but played with girls my age from our apartment building. Orthodox Christians, Jews, and Muslim we kids got along. I did not understand the division of religion and politics that separated the adults from one another. My best friend was my sister Adelia. When she was at school, my favorite playmate was a curly-haired girl named Gamila, meaning beautiful, who lived in the apartment close to us with her Sunni Muslim family. During long, cold winter months, when the wind howled down from the mountains, we frolicked in the snow or passed our hours playing in her apartment or mine. Our doors were not locked in the daylight hours, and we often ran between 2 homes giggling and chattering. Gamila's mother was Mama's friend. She was a plump, sweet woman who loved to cook as the radio blared the traditional music of our country. She let Gamila and me help make huge meals for her family. So at a young age, I learned to make bread and all my favorite meals. My mother taught us our alphabet, how to read stories, and the basics of the English language. School days. I was excited when I was old enough to start kindergarten. I was tried on the European, excuse me, I tried on the European style black and white school uniform my sisters had all worn in the early school years. Mama looked me over and said, "You are the last girl, and I think you've worn enough hand-me-downs from your sisters. Come along, Miriam. Let's go shopping." That day, Mama took me shopping for my own brand new school uniform. We boarded the bus together and she let me sit by the window. But instead of gazing at the passing sights, I turned and looked up at my mama. She was so pretty. Her thick dark hair was covered and a brightly embroidered scarf framed her oval face. Joy radiated in her eyes as she held my hand. On this day, all was well as the crowded bus rumbled through the peaceful streets. I felt like my mother's only child. We stepped off the bus onto the sidewalk, and Mama smiled down at me. "What a big girl you are. Your first school uniform. What do you think, Miriam? What would you like to be when you grow up?" I squeezed her hand. "I want to be just like you, Mama. I want to learn everything and speak English and teach like you." She laughed and addressed me in English. "Thank you." "You are welcome," I replied. She laughed again, and I knew I had pleased her. That was my goal in life, to please my mother, father, and grandma in all I did. My mom wanted to travel to English-speaking nations like England and America. I'd tell her, "Great, Mama, take me with you, and we can practice our English there." I would tell my father I wanted to be a lawyer like him. My grandma wanted me to be a doctor. Many of my relatives were doctors or lawyers too, or on their way to becoming such. I knew from my parents that the way to my dreams was through education. On the first day of school, Mama brushed and braided my hair. My oldest sister, Mubarak, helped her. I stood in a stair-step line with my five sisters for examination. Beautiful, Mama shook her head in wonder. Papa crossed his arms. 6 girls. A good start on my own all-female soccer team. He placed his big hands on our heads in blessings. "Miriam, you are going to be the striker. Do you understand what I mean?" "I think so. Always run fast?" I was full of energy. I loved to run. Everywhere I went, I ran. In the morning, after our family breakfast, I'd run out of the house with the backdrop of my mother calling, "Don't run, Miriam, don't run," ringing in my ears. He laughed something like that. He addressed my sister. "Can you explain?" And he was talking about Adelia. Though she was only a year older than me, Adelia liked to be considered much wiser. "The striker makes the goal. Papa means that everything that you do should be done to play the game fairly and win the prize. Make the goal for the honor of all the team." "That is correct." Papa lowered his chin. "Try your hardest." "I will, Papa," I answered. "I will try." My father always called me a princess. Believing in me and encouraging and inspiring me, he and my mom taught me that whatever I dreamed to be, I would accomplish it. After hugs and kisses all around, we were off like a flock of geese to school, which was only a few minutes' walk from our apartment. My friends Gamelia and this one's kind of tough. Munira meaning bright and shining, forgive me for not getting these names right, joined us. And we felt very grown up and confident with our classmates. From that first day, I caught the meaning of Papa's admonition. Okay, anyway, my bad. To always stay out in front. Honoring and pleasing my parents was my motivation for everything. I loved school, enjoyed academics, and was continually at the top of my class, which consisted of both boys and girls. Only in Islamic religious instruction were boys and girls in different classes. I also excelled in sports and became the captain of the sports team. I especially loved basketball, volleyball, and gymnastics. I learned traditional dances as well as ballet. I was so physically active that I ran almost everywhere. More than once, I tumbled, I needed stitches, but I never broke a bone. I became a natural leader and easily invited friends to join me in whatever sport or game I was playing. Even though I was doing well in school and continued to be popular with my peers, deep in my heart, I had desired for something more in my life. I had not only wanted to please my parents, I wanted to know and please God. I was desperate to hear Allah's voice, but He never spoke to me. My childhood. When our country was at peace, I could roam free. From an early age, was full of energy. I was playing enthusiastically at kindergarten, doing somersaults over and over again by a fountain. My movements were so energetic that I lost my balance and fell to my face, cracking open my chin. There was blood everywhere. I had to be rushed to the hospital for surgery, almost giving my mother a heart attack from the shock. It looked worse than it was, but I still have a faint scar today. Another time in kindergarten, I was running so fast. When the door was open in front of me, I could not stop in time. I smashed into it, knocking my forehead. Blood covered my head from the injury. I nearly passed out, having to go to the hospital again for stitches. Just as it was beginning to heal, I ran into a wardrobe at the kindergarten and it fell on me, wounding the other side of my forehead. My poor teachers. I was becoming a regular at the hospital. Despite all the bumps and bruises, I never broke a bone. Compared to my brothers and sisters who had all broken bones at one time or another, on ice, on the roads in the winter, I didn't slow down the older I got. When I was almost 7 years old, I was outside running to jump into some water and stepped on something sharp. Ah, I cried, suddenly feeling the pain falling to the ground. It hurt so much that I didn't want anyone near my foot. Later, when a doctor came to our house to see me, I wouldn't let him touch me. I screamed whenever he came near my throbbing foot. Eventually, shrugging, he left unable to help. For 3 months, I walked on tiptoe like a ballerina so that the heel of my foot would never touch the ground. My mother was exasperated with me, but I stubbornly refused help. Every summer, I would go and spend time with either my grandmother or aunts and uncles in other cities. That summer, I went to stay with my mother's sister and her husband, the same couple who had matched my parents. They were both shocked when they saw my strange walk. Although I tried to tell them I was fine. They ignored me. Since my cousin's wife was a nurse, she was called immediately to examine my foot. "There is something in there," she exclaimed, and put some medicine in the wound to coax the object out. It took a few days to work itself out, but eventually she was able to pull a long shard of glass out of my foot with her medical tweezers. I screamed in pain, but was also stunned when I saw what had been in my flesh. It was a miracle it hadn't gotten infected, and my aunt told me I could easily have damaged my own foot for life. Instead, it healed quickly. I was so relieved I no longer had to limp everywhere I went. Visiting the Orthodox Church. During Christmas, I was invited to join my Christian school friends at the Orthodox Church for their celebrations. Surprisingly, Mama and Papa agreed to let me go. "She will learn from it," Mama said to Papa. Papa nodded. "Yes, it is important she not be ignorant in the way of others' lives, in the way others live." My friend Mirina's parents also discussed her attendance, allowed her to go with me. Papa instructed, "Their way is not our way. Christianity is very different. You will see. Remember that as you go, be polite, but remember who and what you are." With that admonition in my mind, Mirena and I bundled up in our warmest dress clothes, and a very dark winter night accompanied the Christians to the old Orthodox Church. We held hands as we entered. When our Christian friends dipped their fingers in this little dish of water and made the sign of a cross saying Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we exchanged uneasy glances. I thought there is no God but Allah, but did not speak. The inside of the ancient building was illuminated with more candles than I had ever seen. The warm glow was diffused by the haze of the pungent incense. Painted stars on the arch ceilings shone through the fog. There were paintings, icons, and statues everywhere I looked. I stared at the life-size crèche near the altar. It showed a baby Jesus in the manger, adored by Mary, Joseph, and the shepherds. They all looked surprised as they gasped down at the baby. Jesus was not new to me. He is considered to be a prophet in the religion of Islam. I also knew that Mary was the mother of the prophet, but I wondered, are the figures in the scene real? Is this truly baby Jesus? The figures did not move. I leaned in close and asked Mirena. She shook her head and whispered in my ear, "Icons." My eyes widened. I was surprised by the scene because of the strict Islamic prohibition against graven images. At that moment, an organ blasted, and the congregation began to sing. A priest with a long beard and black robes entered in a procession. He sprinkled water over the congregation, and as the drops fell, the people made a sign of the cross. I felt a drop on my face and quickly wiped it off. There was more bowing and kneeling and getting up and down. Munra and I sat still in the pew. The people repeated prayers I did not understand. Papa was right. This is very different from the mosque. I had not realized there was such a vast gulf between Islam and Christianity. Munra whispered to me, "Unbelievers." I agreed because everyone who is not a Muslim is considered an infidel in Islam. Myrna said to me quietly, "Like a show. Enjoy it. There is lots of food afterwards, cakes and sweets. Ignore the rest. This is nothing to us." At the end of the very long service, the congregation stood to go forward and receive the bread and wine of communion, the body and the blood of Jesus. I was appalled. My Christian friend must have seen my horrified look, because she murmured, "It is only bread and wine. Don't worry." Myrna frowned. We knew that. I wasn't sure how Myrna knew, but I was relieved to hear the news. "You stay here," our Christian friend instructed as her family filed out past us. "We'll be back." And so the two of us Muslims remained in the pews as the Orthodox Christians shuffled forward to receive the bread and wine, the blood and body of Jesus, a prophet of Islam. It was a very strange ritual to me. The Mass concluded and we adjourned to the hall, where giant platters of food were laid out along the tables. Lamb, kebab, grilled chicken, eggs, layers of meat and cheese, yogurt wrapped in bread. Every kind of bread and cheese, winter vegetable was free for the taking. Myrna and I went straight for the dessert table. The golden pastry and honey-filled baklava was just like at home. I enjoyed every bite, licking honey from my fingers. So I thought Christians is all about candles and songs and food, a birthday celebration for one of the prophets of Islam. Her mouth stuffed with cake, Myrna smiled. "Happy birthday, Jesus." When we got home, Papa called me into his study. "Well?" "Christians are very different," I reported, "and the feast was very good after." My father seemed satisfied with his sensible daughter. We attended other holiday celebrations, such as Resurrection of Jesus at the Orthodox Church. Most times, I would tell my parents I was going. The feast that followed services made it worthwhile. A zealous Muslim. Since I was born a Muslim, from a young age, I was determined to be good at it. I turned my attention to memorizing and reciting a set of Muslim prayers to Allah in Arabic 5 times a day. I was so zealous that I often prayed more than 5 times, kneeling on my prayer mat. I raised my voice and shouted the first words as loudly as I could, "Allah Abra," meaning Allah God is great. This was a call to prayer. Later, I realized it was also a call to war, that one would tear our country, our peaceful lives apart. 5 evenings a week, I went to Islamic classes at the Mullah house. An old man with a long gray beard, the Mullah had many sons and 2 daughters, one older and the other younger than me. About 8 of us girls would assemble with his daughters in their living room, and the lessons would last for an hour before sunset. Because I was trying to please Allah, I recruited friends to come out with me. No one forced me to go to the lessons at the Mullah house, but I saw my father's dedication to Islam, how he prayed 5 times a day and went to the mosque every Friday, and I wanted to be like him. My father was my hero, and his strict observance to Islamic law inspired me. But I was so hungry for God. My motivation was to please Allah so I could get a ticket to heaven. I was aware I was a sinner and was afraid because I knew that if I died, I would go to hell like every Muslim. Pausing. My father would sometimes read the Quran to us in the evening. He never pushed it on us, but read us stories when he had time. I would sit close to him. eager to absorb everything I heard. He smiled often at my newness. I had the same hunger he had. He had approved of it. I embraced my religion, and through choice wore a veil covering my long brown hair from about the age of 7. I didn't question my beliefs and the way I was brought up. There was no reason to. I continued reciting the memorized prayers, hoping that one day Allah would answer my prayers. But it was a monologue, not a dialogue. There was no relationship. It was beyond my wildest dreams to think I could have a relationship with God. That concludes chapter 3 with Face to Face with Jesus. I apologize for misquoting words or names. I told you I am not the best of readers, but I do appreciate you coming and visiting with me. And join me next time on the next episode of Chapter 4 with Let's Talk and reading the book Face to Face with Jesus. It's an excellent story. I hope you stick with me. Thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.